A couple saves a man adrift in the Pacific Ocean, but unbeknownst to them, their good deed could cost them their lives. When Royal Australian Navy Captain John Ingram returns from an extended assignment at sea, he wonders why his family isn't there to greet him. Moments later, two police officers approach the man to inform him of an unfortunate incident involving his wife and child. He heads to the hospital where the doctor explains that his son perished just as the ambulance arrived. Then he sees his unconscious wife Rae on a bed being attended to by several physicians. One doctor tells John to speak to his wife while they check her pupillary responses. While on their way to pick John up, Rae drives the car with her son in the back seat. The child drops his toy, so he unbuckles himself to retrieve it. Unfortunately, the rain-slicked road causes the woman to lose control of the vehicle, and it crashes head-on with another car. The unharnessed boy goes flying through the windshield, resulting in his untimely death. Weeks later, in the couple's yacht, Rae awakens from a nightmare recounting the harrowing incident. John rushes to his sobbing wife to comfort her. The woman wishes to return home and end their voyage early, but her husband thinks their time alone in the middle of the calm ocean will help alleviate their tremendous grief. He assures her that once they've accepted their loss, they'll be ready to go home. At dawn, John hears their dog Ben barking, so he climbs up on deck and sees the animal staring off into the distance. Below deck, Rae takes her prescribed sedative medication. Later that day, after the woman finishes taking a dip, they spot a schooner in the horizon, and John remarks that it's the first boat they've seen for 3 weeks. Despite his wife's protestations, the captain turns on his radar and radios the vessel in case the crew is in trouble. However, he receives no response from the schooner. Suddenly, Rae calls him from the deck and says she saw something between the two boats. When he uses his binoculars to scan the area, he sees a lone person on a dinghy headed in their direction. When the man reaches their yacht, he scrambles on board and quickly makes his way below deck. The couple follows him, and he introduces himself as Hughie Warriner. He says he's been at sea for 32 days and that he planned to sail the Pacific on his way to Fiji. John asks if he's all alone, and the man says he is, but reveals that there were 6 of them at the start of the trip. Unfortunately, his companions all perished 10 days ago after consuming tainted canned salmon. He claims the boat has multiple holes in it and is bound to sink in a couple of hours. Hughie opens up his parcel and shows the captain his companions' passports. John suggests they check the schooner for any supplies and equipment they can salvage, but the man insists the water ruined everything. Eventually, the couple urge Hughie to go to sleep and get some rest in the bedroom. Later, the captain rifles through the rescued man's belongings and finds photos of beautiful women and the boat's logbook. While scanning the book, he sees a newspaper ad clipping looking for attractive women who are willing to go on a cruise for a photo assignment. Still suspicious of Hughie, John locks the bedroom from outside and tells Rae that he plans to board the schooner to investigate. He tells his wife to load the gun just in case, and says he'll use the dinghy so that their guest won't hear him leave. While her husband rows away, Rae opens a cabinet where they keep Ben's tennis ball and the gun. However, she chooses not to take the weapon despite John's orders earlier. While she waits for her husband to return, she tosses the tennis ball in the water for the dog to retrieve. In the bedroom, Hughie wakes up and realizes they locked the door from the other side. To get the woman to open it, he says he needs to use the bathroom. Instead of following the stranger's request, Rae turns the motor on and drives toward the schooner. When Hughie senses the movement, he opens the skylight and to his horror, realizes where the yacht is headed. In the schooner, John enters the flooded cabin and sees a reddish liquid seeping through the bottom of another door. When he opens it, the water-filled room empties into the cabin, and the man sees the dismembered bodies of Hughie's companions. He deduces that the unhinged man must have slaughtered the crew and lied about them perishing from food poisoning. In a panic, he returns to the dinghy and rows as fast as he can back to the yacht. When she sees her husband frantically rowing, Rae increases the vessel's speed to get to him. Unbeknownst to her, Hughie manages to open the skylight to climb up to the deck. The man pushes her away from the wheel and steers the boat away from John. The captain sees the scuffle and yells at his wife to jump off the boat. However, the crazed man pushes the woman to the ground, rendering her unconscious. John tries to jump from the dinghy onto the yacht, but he falls short and his arm gets slashed by the propeller blades. He returns to the dinghy and rows back to the schooner to try and start it. Unfortunately, the engine doesn't work, so he heads to the engine room and pumps out as much water as he can. On the yacht, Rae finally regains consciousness and sees Hughie dancing. She asks him where her husband is, and the man just says that he's gone. He adds that it was John's fault because he chose to board the schooner when he said otherwise. When she learns that the other vessel truly is sinking, the woman begs him to turn around to save John, but the man refuses. She asks him if he doesn't care about retrieving his companion's bodies, so he claims that they all tried to kill him, which is why he can't go back there. On the schooner, John manages to fix the engine and brings the power back. In the cabin, he watches projected videos Hughie took of the women on the beach and the photographer Russell, who constantly berates him. The captain switches the motor on and steers the ship to the yacht's direction. Later, while the unhinged man is preoccupied on the deck, Rae slips to the cabin and turns the radar and radio on. She spots another vessel 42 miles away and assumes it's John. Then she receives a transmission from her husband, but the malfunctioning radio on the schooner keeps John from speaking to his wife. Fortunately, he can hear Rae, who asks him yes or no questions, allowing the man to answer through clicks, 1 for yes and 2 for no. He assures her that the boat isn't sinking and that he wants her to stop the boat however she can. The woman heads to the engine room and removes the key to stop the boat. However, Hughie immediately notices that the motor stopped, so he chases the woman all over the vessel to keep her from tossing the key overboard. Rae manages to evade the man, and they end up on opposite ends of the deck. She hurls the key into the water to keep it far away from the evil man's clutches. Unfortunately, Ben instinctively jumps into the water to retrieve the object, believing his owner is just playing fetch. The woman tries to order the dog to drop the key, but the animal swims back to the boat. To keep her from grabbing the key, Hughie pulls on her hair and tosses her to the side, and he scoops the dog out of the water and back on the deck. The woman runs to the cabin and locks herself in the bathroom, hoping to find anything she can use for self-defense. Moments later, the crazed man realizes where she's hiding and starts banging on the door. Finally, she opens the door and agrees to a truce, so she remains on his good side. On the schooner, John hears a noise from the engine room, so he heads down and finds an entrance to a lower chamber that's flooded with water. He swims down into this space, but to his horror, he finds Russell's decaying body. Later, he returns to the cabin where the projected video continues playing. It shows the increasing tension between Hughie and the photographer, escalating into verbal fights. Then he hears Rae on the radio, who tells him that her plan of stealing the key failed. He informs her by answering her yes or no questions that the boat is sinking and that he thinks he only has 6 hours before it's completely underwater. She promises him that she'll return with a yacht by sundown. But before she can tell him "I love you," the schooner loses power due to an oncoming storm, cutting off their communication. Soon, Hughie hears Rae crying, so he descends into the cabin. Knowing she'll have to buy herself some time to get to the gun, she decides to seduce the man by going along with his advances and kissing him. He leads her back to the bedroom where they get undressed and are about to make love on the floor. Rae says she needs to use the bathroom before they proceed with the deed, but she heads to the deck instead and assembles the gun. However, when she hears the man approaching, she sets the gun aside and grabs a pack of cigarettes and says she just went to the deck to grab them. To ease his suspicions, she takes him back to the bedroom where she makes love to the despicable man who believes she actually likes him. Meanwhile, in the schooner, John tries to figure out a way to keep the boat from sinking faster. But while he's in the cabin, the lightning hits and severs the main mast, and it falls right next to the door, trapping the captain inside. After making love, Rae devises a plan to incapacitate her captor. So while he's distracted, she prepares a glass of lemonade and doses it with multiple capsules worth of her sedative medication. When Hughie returns, she pretends to drink from the glass before offering him to take the rest of the beverage. Fortunately, he finishes the lemonade without suspecting anything. Then the woman heads back up to grab the gun and the shells. When Hughie's about to enter the room, she says there's a storm coming and that they need to take the canopy down. While the man's busy on the deck, she loads the shotgun. Minutes later, after he takes the canopy down to the cabin, he catches Rae holding the gun. Furious because he thought they had a genuine connection, he tries to take the weapon away from her. During the scuffle, the first shot accidentally goes off and destroys the radio. Eventually, he tosses the woman across the room, then points the gun in her direction. She cowers under a desk and uses a wooden chair to protect herself. Suddenly, Hughie's vision starts to blur as the sedatives she placed in his drink take effect. Dizzy, he fires the second shot but misses her badly. Knowing that the guns run out of shots, she comes out of her hiding place. But the strong waves throw them both onto the cabin floor. The cabinet's contents spill on the floor, and a harpoon gun lands right next to the woman. She grabs the weapon and locks herself in the bedroom. When she hears him trying to break down the door, she shoots one harpoon. After a few seconds, she launches another when she sees the knob turning. After seeing drops of blood seeping through the hole, she cautiously opens the door and walks down the hallway. Suddenly, Hughie jumps out from behind a curtain, pins her on the wall, and strangles her. Fortunately, the sedatives take full effect, and the deranged man passes out. The bedroom door swings closed, and Rae sees that it was actually her dog Ben that she hit with a harpoon. Eventually, she ties Hughie up in the bedroom and nails the skylight shutters down so he can't escape. She tries to turn the motor on, but realizes that they've run out of fuel. So she unfurls the sails and steers the yacht herself to try and get to John in time. Meanwhile, the schooner continues filling up with water, and John's running out of air to breathe. When the water reaches the ceiling, he finds a pipe connected to the deck and uses it to breathe. All of a sudden, a fish swims right next to his face, so he decides to take one last deep breath before swimming down into the ship's hull to search for a hole he can escape through. Eventually, he finds the opening and swims back to the surface. In the bedroom, Hughie wakes up and cuts the ropes using a broken shard of glass on the floor. Concurrently, John sets the schooner on fire so Rae can spot him. Moments later, the woman sees the glowing light from far away and believes it could be her husband, so she steers the boat in the light's direction. Seconds later, Hughie breaks through the door leading to the deck, but Rae waits for him with a harpoon gun atop the steps. She shoots him with a harpoon on the shoulder, and as he continues approaching her, she knocks him unconscious with a weapon. Then she releases a life raft into the water, rolls his unconscious body onto it, and sets him adrift into the ocean. As the woman continues searching for her husband, she shoots a flare into the sky. Finally, she spots him lying on top of a piece of floating debris and steers the boat toward him. As the yacht passes by, she holds out her hand for him to grab onto and pulls him back on board. Happy and relieved, the couple is finally reunited after their hellish experience. The next day, they come across the empty life raft and wonder what could have happened to Hughie. To make sure he isn't just hiding underneath it, Rae fires a flare onto the raft to set it ablaze. Unbeknownst to the couple, a bloody handprint trail paints the other side of the boat, implying that the crazed man is on board. Later, after the woman swims in the ocean, John washes her hair on the deck. When the kettle whistles, he excuses himself to prepare their breakfast, leaving his wife all alone. Moments later, a bloody set of hands continues massaging Rae's hair, and she assumes that it's John. Just as Hughie strangles her with a towel, John returns to the deck and sees the silhouette of the scuffle. Quickly, he readies a flare and shoots it through the sail, hitting the deranged man in the mouth, and he falls off the yacht before lifelessly floating in the water. John holds Rae protectively, both relieved that their nightmare is finally over.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.